You're listening to Lifestyle Blueprints, discussions to build a life of your own design. I'm Josh Hoskins. Welcome to the show. Well, welcome. It's been an amazing week for Legendary Life Media. Been tons of fun, lots of cool stuff we've been up to. Can't wait to share more about it. In fact, you'll be seeing a lot of it through all of our socials, all of our different pages. So, hey, what better time if you're listening to this? Hey, go follow Legendary Life Media. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hey, if you're listening to the podcast on another platform, one of the listening, podcast platforms, give it a like, give it a follow. You know you want to, okay? You know it's the right thing to do. Where else are you going to get this kind of inspiration, this kind of personality? This is the only place to do it. And hey, good example of the kind of things that we're doing. If you're in the Phoenix area, if you're in Arizona, or you're close enough to fly in, because hey, it's worth it, we have a networking community event coming up. It's called LINK, L-I-N-K, stands for Lifestyle and Influence Networking Kickstart. It's in downtown Phoenix at an amazing venue. It's a brewery. We have an open courtyard all to ourselves. It's going to be packed out. It's going to be full of people who are like-minded, like you, wanting to invest and grow in their lifestyle. We're going to have a lineup of speakers. We're going to have a DJ. We're going to have drinks flowing. There's non-alcoholic options too, if you are looking for something that suits that lifestyle. All kinds of stuff we can do. We have amazing local legends who will be speaking, people from this area who have really succeeded and have grown in different ways, personally, professionally, are successful entrepreneurs or successful influencers. Amazing people to get input from the stage, but there's also going to be a packed venue full of people who are like-minded like you, an amazing place to meet your next best friend or business partner, someone who can help put you on, someone who you can put on. It's going to be an amazing time. So come through. It's going to be March 13th, Friday the 13th in March. I don't know if that's good luck or bad luck, but that's when it will be. So get your ticket on Eventbrite. We're also going to be blasting it on our socials as well, so it'll be easy for you to find the link. Check that out. I will be there. I'll shake your hand. Tell them you found it through Lifestyle Blueprints, and maybe I'll do something for you. We'll figure something out. So that'll be a good time. And one of the things that we've been up to that was actually tons of fun and kind of inspired what I want to talk about this episode is it was the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So Legendary Life Media got to check out and cover the Waste Management Phoenix Open last weekend. An amazing time, but it also kind of got me thinking, because golf is, I think, officially a rich person sport. You know, I mean, it kind of always has been. And what other rich person sports are there? I mean, golf, maybe like fly fishing, polo for sure, like dressage, horse stuff probably, maybe like hunting, big game hunting, fox hunting also. There are certain sports, tennis I think is a good one. There are a lot of sports that are considered more aligned with rich culture, they're kind of the fancy sports. And if you ever go to these kinds of events and you meet the people who are involved, either they play and are hobbyists or they're people who go to the events and keep track of them regularly and are commonly found at these places, I think there's kind of a reputation for a lot of like inheritance, daddy's money people being there, which I guess there probably are, but a lot of these people are very well accomplished people, heads of companies, high-level executives, successful entrepreneurs. These are people who have really earned every bit of success that they've gotten. And I think that's kind of an interesting contrast, right? Because we associate those people with these leisure activities, but at the same time, we also usually, at least in American culture, will often associate these kinds of people with hardcore hustle, crazy work ethic, never taking days off. And it got me thinking, what's the difference between recreation and leisure? And, at what point is it laziness and at what point is it truly restful and something that can rejuvenate you? And how does that make its way into your lifestyle? I think that's something that's an interesting topic. I'm also kind of curious, what makes certain sports higher status than others? And obviously, all sports at the highest levels have a luxurious aspect to them, but there's clearly a difference between sports like, say, basketball and polo, or American football and golf. There's certain things about them that kind of elevate them in a cultural sense. And yes, of course, it's a matter of opinion, but there's clearly a different perception of certain sports over others. And I'm sure there's lots of factors that go into that. But I think it's just fascinating. I think it's interesting. And I wonder why certain sports are elevated to a certain position socially more than others. I think it's just an interesting thing to think about. I don't have the answers, but I'm curious. Maybe throw it in the comments if you have any opinions on that. But one thing I really do want to just explore is what's the difference between lazy, waste of time recreation and true leisure that is restful. And I actually, in researching this and trying to learn more about it, came across something interesting that actually comes from the Romans. Leave it to a white dude with a podcast talking about the Roman Empire. But the Romans, I think, are a really interesting case study into this kind of question because they actually had an entire philosophy around it that they called either otium or negotium. And this concept of otium is the idea that there is a purpose to life that is found in leisure activities, things like gardening, reading, spending time with friends and loved ones. Those were actually considered the primary way that you should be spending your time in the ancient Roman world. And it was contrasted with negotium, which was basically business or public duty, things that you were obligated to do. And they actually held otium, leisure, in a higher social regard than negotium, which I think is an interesting contrast also to our modern world, especially, I mean, I guess here in the States, it's probably a little different than a place like Europe or maybe other parts of the world. But in the United States, where I'm from, it's kind of the opposite of what the Romans did, right? Here, people who are nonstop hardcore hustlers are kind of elevated, and people who prefer to spend their time relaxing are considered, they're socially punished, so to speak. They're seen as less than the people who really hustle. And I am fascinated by that. And I think that's also, I think your relationship with leisure and your ability to have recreation in a way that is truly helpful in your self-realization is a key indicator of how advanced and mature you are as a person in all kinds of areas of your life. So I think leisure can be just as powerful as work or duty in your self-realization. I absolutely do. Because going back to this Roman concept of otium, the idea that the true meaning to be found in your experience of life is actually often found more so in activities that make you uniquely human in your leisure. Things like having a deep and thoughtful and meaningful conversation with your friends, or maybe doing a hobby that you find a lot of pleasure in, maybe gardening or reading. I'm thinking of the kind of hobbies that existed back in ancient Rome, but that to the Romans was actually a form of self-realization. It was highly elevated in their social landscape. And I think that while that might not be the status quo in modern, like American, Western society, it still is something that people who manage to elevate their own lifestyles eventually come to realize. I used to be Mr. Hustle all the time, nonstop, constant, and I actually found a certain level of success doing that. I founded my first company doing that and exited out of it lucratively by doing that. I managed to get into a really cool living situation, do a lot of fun things doing that. But I eventually was capped by my inability to properly have otium, basically, to have leisure that was just as helpful to my self-realization as the work that I was doing. And I think that's something that is also really fascinating because it can also be so easily misconstrued also, right? There are counter arguments to this. One of them is, someone can be like, yeah, like leisure can be a way for me to self-realize, just like Josh said. So I'm going to smoke weed all day and watch TV, and that's me having leisure. That's me having otium. That's not what I'm saying at all. And I can understand how some people might get that confused, and some people would rather err on the side of having not enough otium than too much of it and winding up being an ineffective person. I really don't want to encourage that, but I hope that if you're listening to this, you can see the nuance. There's something that you're really losing in life if you're not able to take leisure in a way that really broadens your ability to appreciate life. That's, I think, one of the main things that makes us human, and it actually supports our ability to have a better lifestyle and to become more successful. It doesn't diminish from it, because the people who are at the highest levels, the people who are running companies, running giant corporations, they're huge, they're highly successful executives. These are people who are celebrities. These are people who are massively effective people. A lot of them spend a huge chunk of their time doing leisure activities. And it's not to their detriment, it's to their benefit. And I think if you want to be a successful person, this is something that I've discovered in my life, figure out what in your life you can do that is true otium, as the Romans called it, true leisure, something that you do and it makes you feel more alive. It connects you more with yourself and the world that you live in. It makes you more ingrained. You're able to feel the world around you more. It makes you feel more alive, and that has a ripple effect into other things that you do, your work, your duties. It creates this more harmonious balance in your life. And that's a balance that wouldn't be there if you were in work mode all the time or if you were in leisure mode all the time. But leisure is, I think, in our current Western culture, in America especially, the scales are way overly weighted towards work and duty, and we haven't really figured out how to have leisure in a way, culturally anyway. I'm not saying everyone's like this, but when it comes to the general public perception, we don't really, I think, have a healthy relationship with leisure right now. So what are some ways that you can actually incorporate this into your life? What are ways that you can right now, even if you're not rich, even if you're not in the 1%, can still have the ability to have proper leisure in a way that aids your life, even if you can't afford to go to the Kentucky Derby or whatever the most affluent events in rich people sports are. So I think one is really being able to discover. It's just discovery. It's just like try a lot of different things, find out what really causes you to see the world more vividly in your action. For me, it was actually going out and socializing and meeting new people. That's what it ended up being for me. Something I never expected. I was never really much of a painter. I never clicked with a musical instrument. I kind of grew up thinking I didn't really have any artistic talent, or no kind of leisure activity really stuck out to me as something that was truly resonant until I got a little bit older, broke out of my shell, started going out to a lot of times nightlife venues or just general public places and whipping up conversations with strangers in places where it's deemed more socially okay to do that. And I ended up falling in love with it. I wrote a networking ebook called Access Granted, all about it on Legendary Life Media. Hey, go to Legendary Life Media, purchase Access Granted. It'll teach you how to network your way into high levels of all kinds of places, get into exclusive events, become a local celebrity in your city or town. Check that out. But that is something that I unironically, without the shameless plug, did find to be something that was beautiful to me. But find something that's beautiful to you. It's probably not that. Might be. If it is, I'm happy to help you. But if not, maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's reading. Maybe it's philosophy. Maybe it's fashion. Maybe it's learning about different styles of art. It could be anything, but that's what I would say is the first step if you're just trying to understand how to have a better relationship with leisure in your life. And then secondly, once you discover what that thing is, or if you're still in the process of discovering what it is and you have some hunches, be really mindful of your time management. And I think people have a really unhealthy relationship with time management too. I did for a long time because I associated it with control. But when you realize that proper time management actually empowers you to have a healthy balance of leisure and work or duty in your life, it becomes addicting to have rigid time management. It actually causes you to be passionate and excited about having a schedule, because now you can fill your schedule with exactly the things you want, and you can have a very comparatively much more fulfilling experience of life. And a big part of that is knowing how to properly place your leisure. So that's another big thing. And then once you kind of have both of those things down, you discover what you really love, you figure out how to fit it into your life. I think the last thing is, this will sound kind of corny, but it's sharing it with others. It's being able to find other people who share that love for that type of leisure, but also people who maybe haven't discovered it yet, or maybe it's not their main thing, but you can share it with them as a way to just kind of open their eyes a bit, to learn to appreciate it and have it be just another thing that they can look to for beauty in their life. I think that's really where the ultimate fulfillment comes from. It's when you're able to share it with other people and display it in your own life and have other people in on it to just spread the beauty of whatever that thing is for you. And that goes hand in hand with building your lifestyle, because listen, if all you do, and trust me, I'm all about making money. I'm all about hustling and being hardcore. I'm all about the grind. That's a big part of who I am. I like to dominate. But at the same time, I understand that if all you do to make money is work, and in order to have success financially, all you do is work, then what's the point of the money? You know? I've met people who are successful financially, but they spend about 16 hours of every day doing nonstop work. And even when they're relaxing, they're not really relaxed. I don't want that kind of success. That's not the kind of success that I want. And what's interesting is you don't even need that necessarily to have success. I know many people who are able to achieve that balance and still have high levels of influence, have high levels of lifestyle abundance. It's possible. And I think making sure that you have a healthy relationship with leisure, even in the beginning when you haven't had your full comeuppance yet, that's actually the perfect time to develop that proper relationship with fun, with leisure, because with otium, right, as the Romans called it, because that's when you can really have the right patterns in place, so that when you do eventually ascend and when you do eventually accomplish all the things that you want to accomplish, you're not shooting yourself in the foot by having a wrong relationship with how you spend your time and how you balance your ability to self-realize through leisure and through your duties. So that's kind of what I thought about, and kind of interesting how I got there from the Phoenix Open, but it's just a super interesting concept that I really have a passion for. So I think that just about covers what I wanted to go over in this episode. But hey, guys, again, follow Legendary Life Media, subscribe to Legendary Life Media, and check us out on all of our different platforms. Check out all the different things that we're doing. Come to our events. Link is coming up in Phoenix, like I said, and I will see you there. I'll see you in all of our different places. Until next time, this has been Lifestyle Blueprints. I'm Josh Hoskins. See you on the next episode. Peace.